Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Big, Medium, Small Drawing Foundations. Today we focus on drawing clothes. By anatomy, I mean anatomy of clothes. It's all these little parts that we don't think about so often. You know, when you think about drawing clothes, you immediately jump to how hard it is to draw fabric. But if we add up the easy parts, we get quite a lot. So what I'm demonstrating now is how to draw a belt. And it's not hard, it's just a cross contour line right around the middle of a person. It's got belt loops. Don't skip them. They really add a lot. Got a thickness. And of course the belt buckle. So this is only loosely about the kind of a corset, but you see dresses that have that sort of thing around the middle of it. And what I'm interested in you guys understanding is just how much volume and form, including this central cross contour line, gives you. Okay, next is the zipper. The zipper I draw is the zipper that turns up on most of my jeans. It's kind of a seam and a straight line. Okay, now there's a couple of parts to pants that are worth talking about. So when you're drawing the pants, think about the seams. Think about the way that they show you the exact side of the object, and it allows you to move that around. It allows you to say this is the side, or this is the side, or this is the side. It gives you a good place for light to end for so there's a seam along the inside too. There's one on the outside and then one on the inside. It's almost like a line that cuts the object in four. So I'm wanting for you to see that you get a lot of perspective off the direction of the ellipse at the bottom of the cuff. And here I'm just going to show you some perspective that comes from drawing these cuffs. So there's the seams, and they start to give me volume. Thinking of a karate class. Here I'm looking as though a person were lying down on the floor. This is someone in the karate class who got knocked out. They're taking a little break. And here's the cuff at the bottom. I also want to include the bottom of a dress. This is another extremely useful ellipse. The ellipse does a lot to convey a sense of depth, like how big the thing really is. And here I'm just trying to show you that that effect comes off of an 8 turned on its side. It's another really useful mark. Buttons form a line down the center of the shirt. They also have dimension in and of themselves as you get close to them. If you take the line that you use for the button and you have it pass over the contour of the folds on the front of the shirt, it adds a lot of volume. You see how that line, the line of the buttons, relates to the outside contour? Also look at as the buttons turn, the shapes of the ellipses, like the way that the shapes of the eyes get smaller. Kind of what I've ended up doing in my own drawing practice is I take a topic and I think to myself, like, how much do I know about that topic? So for instance, in terms of collars, how many different kinds of collars can I draw? I mean, you might think when you first ask yourself that question, well, I could draw 100 different kinds of collars. I mean, there must be 1,000. But then as you start, sometimes you find out you're lucky if you can draw 6. But then if you have 6, that's quite a tool. It's kind of interesting too. Collars are basically all a variation of a round neck or a V-neck. And then the variation is it high? Is it low? Is there a collar? Is there not a collar? So when we're drawing a collar, see the perspective I just put on the buttons. I'll add some thickness to the collar itself. There's a shadow on the underside, a shadow on the inside of the collar. And this is a high collar on someone's coat, like what might be called a greatcoat in Charles Dickens. Someone who's on a boat might be wearing a coat like this, like a pea coat with a collar. And this is like, sometimes you'll see a person just wearing a tie around their neck, like as in place of a necklace. But for drawing, what we get out of including collars, that's a necklace, is we get perspective and a cross contour again, and it shows volume. It shows us the overall shape of the neck. There we go, thickness. Okay, this is kind of the take apart anatomy of a shirt. You know, including like what you might get in a tailor's pattern. Here's the back of the shirt. You have that top panel. I happen to think pockets are super fun to draw. I'm also a person who abuses my pockets. Look at the perspective on the pockets. See how they're shrinking as they go to the other side of the form? More detail on the close side. Look at how the seam is closer to the far pocket than it is to the close pocket. So this is going to be the cuff at the end of a sleeve. We're looking down at it. That's where the button would come together. See how with just the anatomy of fashion, I'm getting a real form, like a drawing. It looks like a character, a person. Okay, I'm going to give you guys an example. I'm riffing on a theme by Degas, the ballerinas, because the more I thought about that work, the more I realized it's such a good example of using the shapes of clothing to create depth and perspective and interest inside of an image. I'm thinking of kids. You know, the way kids get into ballet. That's what I'm thinking of here. thinking of these two waiting off stage for their part. You know the way it is with kids, where someone gets a big part and other people get little parts, and it's just it's like one of the early unfairnesses about life, you know? See how I'm able to bring this child super close to the viewer and make it feel like we're looking down on her by the shape of the ellipse that describes the dress. Okay, now in the distance, and really hamming it up. And then further into the distance still. And see how I'm using the perspective on the ellipses, on those dresses, to say so much about form. Okay. And here's one of the dads from the ballet performance. He's thinking, I'm glad that's over. Again, I want you to notice that in terms of drawing clothing right now, I'm not drawing any of the folds. I'm really just drawing the parts. And what I'm trying to demonstrate is just how much we get out of just drawing the seams, the hems, the cuffs, the button lines, the collars. Here's another dad he's passing in the hallway. See the ellipse on the cuff? How it turns the hand to the side? I'm using all the parts we talked about. And really only the parts we talked about. cuffs and button lines, belts, seams. Well, so we do eventually have to get into drawing folds. But the first way I want to approach a fold is as a design tool. I don't want to approach it as a technical thing to succeed or fail at. I want to propose that we ask ourselves, how do these help our drawings? How do these make our drawings more interesting? How do they make our drawings more beautiful? What's the use of them in terms of expression? Not just like another technical hurdle. Okay. So my character is ice skating. I like to think they're ice skating at night out on Lake Champlain, frozen over for 700 miles. And what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for the action. How do I convey the feeling that the character is having? It's a feeling of glowing and gliding and flowing and okay. So see how all the areas of folds, see how they form arrows? I'll be more specific about this. I'll give you a demonstration in 1 second, what I mean. But see how they get big as they go towards the back? And so it's like these three line arrows, and they point in the direction that the character is going in, and they spread out as they move towards the back of the character. And in a way, based on sort of linear perspective and drawing, that means space. You know, the lines moving further apart. It means it's moving in space. And so in a flat way, I'm using this to say it's moving in space. I want that sense of movement. See, even here, watch, I'll look for a way to, you see how I've got the close line towards the front and then I widen out? An arrow pointing the direction. His nose is a nose, but it's also an arrow. Now look when I draw the hair. See how I'm making the lines get further apart as they go back? Sorry guys, I think my spelling is just terrible. I know my spelling is terrible. It's a lifelong deficiency. Thank God for drawing. Okay, so see these little shapes? And look at how I'm using the directionality and the coming together to make an arrow. And look at how it says energy and action and movement and space. And that's what I'm interested in drapery. Okay, so we're now going to get into the nitty-gritty of actual folds. And these are them. There's categories of folds. Really, the first folds are hanging folds, and the first hanging fold is a pipe fold. So when fabric is just hanging around, like curtains, it has a tendency to form these little semicircles, and they're called pipe folds. And here's how we draw them. It's just a line looping back and forth. And watch what happens when I cinch them. See how the lines in the center get smaller? I'm starting to take a hanging fold and I'm starting to bunch it up. So these are a couple of skirts, like what we were doing in the ballet drawing, like what I was doing in the Degas drawing. And look at the way that I'm using the direction of the pipe folds to suggest action. So she looks like she's dancing. See, I brought the thigh forward by having there be less pipe folds over it. This one's called a diaper fold. Silly name. But what it means is it's a pipe fold that's being supported not evenly across the top, but it's got a split up support up at the top. And see how it runs into the middle? It's like pipe folds start to cascade down over each other in these triangles. But then on the edges, on the left and right edge, it's just simple pipe folds. See on this shirt, like if you imagine her shoulders are tension points holding the... See, you get the little triangular cascading pipe folds. Here's a table where you've got the two edges holding a tablecloth, the two corners are holding a tablecloth. And you see how I'm getting the cascading pipe folds, the diaper fold, and then on the corners, pipe folds. So the diaper fold, in a weird way, it's kind of a halfway between the hanging pipe and a category of folds called bunching. And in an arm, when an arm bends, one side you get a squash and the other side you get the stretch. And look at the direction of the arrow. You see these folds in there? Those are bunching folds. And that's a simple diagram of them. And the half lock, you see how it's got a little teardrop shape? A lot of times in the creases, like at your elbow or your knee, you do end up with half locks. And there's a zigzag fold, another bunching fold. And the classic place where you see this is at the bottom of your pants. Over here I'll just show you the zigzag pattern. But the zigzag takes advantage of these little diamond shapes. It's this cascading of diamond shapes that help the fabric kind of find its equilibrium at the floor. They're sort of like the tolerance built into the fabric. The fabric has this tolerance in its nature. It goes into these diamond shapes. Just going to do a close-up of that. I recommend you look at Frank Miller, the comic book artist. His sense of design with these shapes is kind of incomparable. Here's on the belly of a baggy shirt. You're going to get the zigzag folds too, only wider. As they move up the form, they tend to get taller. Just zigzagging around at the bottom of the form. Here's a bunching form, kind of happens at the crotch. And then if you consider the hips as tension points, you can end up with a diaper fold up through the top of the pelvis. Okay, tension folds are what happens when one part pulls on another part. So again, I'm going to draw karate person. And you see how the armpit becomes a pull point based on where the seam is, and the wrist becomes a pull point based on where the seam is. The knee is going to be a pull point. This is another kind of tension fold. But what it is this is like, say the guy's got like a really buffed chest, like he's all muscles. And then if you're wearing a t-shirt, the shape, it gets these little folds that pass across as the fabric tightens. The fabric can't fall easily, and so it forms these little points. Now he's got a really skinny waist, and so at the bottom of the form, we're going to get these zigzag folds. If I wanted to find the rib, the bottom of the rib, and do a hanging fold, that could be good too. I think I'll leave it. Get it on the pants. So see how the pants, pipe folds hanging on the pants. And this is the last one I want to show you. This is a wrapping fold. What I like about it is, again, it forms cross contours, and so it gives us a pretext for form and design, really. And that's how it works if the arm is just reaching straight out. But we have this other situation where sometimes one part of the form twists one direction while the other part is twisting another direction. And that's where the overall shape becomes kind of an S. Can you see that? Okay, so that's the basic folds. Now, I'm going to take these three topics on, okay? Okay. So, these are the bunching points. This is where you're going to get, fabric is going to bunch right up inside these areas, and you're going to get clusters of those bunching folds in these specific spots. And so see how I'm sketching this guy, and while I'm sketching him, I'm using the looseness, I'm using the freedom of knowing that inside these points, inside these zones, there's a tendency of the fabric to bunch. And so you see how my sketch lines are bunching? And it's not like I'm drawing an individual fold. It's more like I'm using it as part of my design process. But the marks that I'm using to do it insinuate the kinds of folds that you're going to run into in there. And that's really what these are, is these are scribbles that help you sketch. See how I'm using the bunching zones? Okay, now the fabric rests are where any area that kind of turns upwards, where fabric would be sitting across the top. See, that's how the bunching scribble goes. Now here's how the resting, this is like fabric resting on a zone. It gets these loopy lines. So now I'm going to draw a person that has, and what I'm going to show is I'm going to use the loopy lines. You see the fabric rests up on the top of a person's chest. You see the bunching lines in the elbow? Those bunching lines as her torso turns under the chest and into the abdomen. You see how the top of the chest is resting lines? So they're loopy, squiggly marks. Okay, the top of the dress is going to be loopy. Okay, now here's how we sketch pull points. Here's how we sketch lines that are tension. Okay, you'll notice in the diagram that the tension lines come off the shoulder blades. See all the different placements of those tension lines? These two guys, I see them like a couple of gangsters. Like Reservoir Dogs or something like that. So here's my high points, and off of the high points, that's where I make the tension lines pull from. And really what's going on is the fabric hangs off of those points. Okay, so now I'm going back and saying where the fabric rests, and where the fabric rests, I'm going to do loopy lines. And here I'm adding tension to this drawing. Those are the tension lines. So there's three kinds of scribbles. There's the tension scribble, there's the bunching scribble, and then there's a resting scribble. I think this is something I've wanted to have in my drawing for a long time, like a sensible kind of scribbling. Shapes are our big tool. They're our sort of constant resource, and turning shapes into volumes, these are the important ones. Look at, here's a bunch of hats built off of cylinders and spheres and ellipses. Here I've modified some shapes. So you start out with a cone and cut a part of it out. It looks like an 18th century, 17th century waistcoat. So I'm just going to draw a bunch of outfits, imagined outfits. But what I'm going to challenge myself to do is I want to challenge myself to base these outfits on shapes. The cube feels hard to me to begin with, but I'm trying. I immediately start to think of Boba Fett or a sort of space sci-fi. I'm looking for ways to cut the cube in ways that might be plausible in a sort of human. See how I'm just trying to inflect my drawing, to inform my drawing, to let my drawing be inspired by the cube shape. And the modification is just the cut. You see how I do that cut? So I thought that shape, maybe that shape works. It kind of has a directionality to it. Okay, I'm going to move on to a sphere. I'm starting out here. I don't know where I'm going to go, but I've got the sphere, and I'm sort of just saying, how does this work with a human shape? We've been practicing human shapes. Like, what can I do with the sphere with a human shape? How does it interact? Kind of starts looking like the court of Louis Philippe. Some like 16th century royal monarch. So really I'm working with the anatomy of clothing. I'm working with the sketch lines from the drapery and with a little information about the way that the drapery works. Like those would be bunched up, maybe pipe folds in there. And exaggerating the shapes with our geometric solids. Just like playing with the geometric solids. Here's a prism. A cone, it's not a prism, sorry. I guess the obvious thing for that is a skirt. I've finally had an idea for the sphere. One of those crazy old dresses, like that drapes behind you forever, and it has I don't even know what that thing would be called, that they would, it seemed like they had like the frame of a boat built into the back of the dress. It's a fun shape to draw. That's how you erase with a pen. You change the design. Here's a character designed all cones. And I love this hat. It's one of my favorite shapes. Here's the cone modification. I'm opening it up on one side, but I don't know what to do with it. I'm just sort of getting it in front of me. Okay, I'm going to do the waistcoat. And now I'm adding the spheres on the shoulder. See how my drawing is influencing my drawing? Like I hadn't planned any of this. I think that this is probably, I think that I would like for this to stand as a real lesson in creativity, because this is kind of how I feel creativity happens. You give yourself a task, and the task in this case is to take the geometric solids that we've been practicing and use them to influence where we might go with costumes, like what we might do to draw characters and to think about them. And the challenge here is to stay open, but it's not like just anything. It's like, you know, it's to stay open, but it's open within a rule set, really. So the rules are, we use the geometric solids, we use the sketching that we've been working on, that I've been showing you guys. I'm using the sketching that I've been showing you guys. So right now, my task is I've moved on to ribbons, and I'm drawing ribbons. I'm just taking a human and I'm adding ribbons. But see the feet from the feet from the sumo wrestler became the beginning of that hat. And now the sleeves are cones, and the dress is a cone as well. So I've got ribbons and cones working together. So I'm showing you how, like, I'm making my own little toy box here. And it's also like it also has the bringing together of items that are not necessarily associated. It's very much like a soup. Okay, so I just threw out the cylinder, and now I'm looking for places to add cylinders. And so I'm going to use it down here as a dress on this, to me, this very interesting character. I don't know who they are, but I like them. Cylinders, where do cylinders go? Thinking of the costumes for the movie Amadeus. Just a little bit of skull drawing that I know, a little bit of feature drawing that I know. Staying with the cylinders. Oh, here comes that box again. Again, it's another interesting little character, and I had no idea where they were coming from. Okay. See the improvisation? But it's an improvisation within a rule set. So I'm drawing from cubes. Look at, I'm thinking about this sphere because it's another option in this. I'm not just pounding my head against one thing. But then watch this. Now the sphere has come into that other drawing and created a whole new passage of meaning. So what she's doing there, kind of contemplating the sphere, it sort of struck me as like almost like cell phones, like the way that we are with our cell phones. Like, what if our cell phones were these spheres? It'd be hard to put them in our pocket. And because basically what I do is I put together human shapes with the geometric solids, I was thinking of one of those 19th century diver costumes. Thinking of like a giant, almost being like an astronaut carrying your own environment. And I don't know who these guys are. Adding a ribbon. Hey, look at this guy. That'd be a good influence, right? Look at the wings. Okay. Well, I was going to do a whole section on costumes, but I feel like I just did. Here it is. Like a magic show. Alright guys, thanks for watching. It's been another episode of Big Medium Small. This guy is JC Leindecker. We have to say perfect draftsmanship. Like crystal. He makes me think of Michelangelo. Look at those drapes. Just amazing. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.